Makes an astounding drug bust.
$2 million in illicit drugs were seized.
92% of the illegal drugs that come into the U.S.
Federal immigration authorities say that they've seized more than 3 tons of marijuana from
the #1 inland port in the United States. It's a title Laredo city leaders are proud of, but there's another title no one is talking about.
In the past year, the port here in Laredo, we basically became the leading port for the importation of methamphetamine.
More methamphetamine comes through the port of Laredo than anywhere else in the United States. James Reed is the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Laredo District Office for the Drug Enforcement Administration. He says meth isn't the only drug the agency is seeing more of.
We just got to that point with the methamphetamine, and so now we see that heroin seizures are on the increase.
Heroin seizures have more than quadrupled for the DEA field office that includes Laredo, from 38 pounds seized in 2011 to 193 pounds in 2014. In fact, in the latest DEA intelligence report outlining the threat of heroin across the United States, deaths from heroin have increased 172% since 2010. And in 2014, heroin arrest by DEA surpassed marijuana arrest for the first time. And that, Reed says, is due to new players in the heroin market.
The Mexican traffickers are starting to compete on the East Coast for the traditional white heroin markets.
The DEA isn't the only agency seeing an increase in hard drug seizures.
When you're talking about methamphetamine, we've seen an increase of 132% compared to the same 9 months that we looked at in the year 2014.
Lucia Dovalina is the public affairs liaison for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. She says the agency is also seeing an increase in hard drug seizures at the 8 ports in the Laredo field office, from Del Rio to Brownsville.
When you're talking about heroin, we also saw a 20% increase.
Dovalina says the agents at the ports are specially trained to keep up with trends when it comes to the way drugs are smuggled, trends that have changed over the years.
The way that people are concealing narcotics these days really has evolved. These days you're seeing a lot more of soft drink bottles being used. You see a lot of liquid. They're utilizing shampoo bottles. They're utilizing lotions. In years past, you would always know that you could check a gas tank, and typically you might find something in it. These days, the concealments are throughout the many parts of a vehicle.
It's not only the federal agencies like Customs and Border Protection and DEA that are seeing an increase in heavy narcotics, but according to the police department, street-level seizures are also up for both heroin and cocaine.
Heroin has been an issue in this community for many years, and our stats are not indicative of what the actual picture is.
Police Chief Ray Garner says he's seen the increase in hard drug use firsthand over his 40 years in law enforcement.
The cartels and the organizations that do, deal in illegal narcotics, heroin, cocaine, meth, they've got the money for, they have their own intelligence community. The war on drugs, as everybody's always said, we lost it.
Like Garner, Reed says the Mexican cartel's involvement in the heroin, cocaine, and meth markets has made investigating big cases difficult.
In days past, when you got to a point where you took an investigation to where it went to Mexico, it would basically end there because you really couldn't expect that you could get cooperation or to take it any further than that unless somehow you could get the traffickers into the United States.
Recently, the Mexican government has showed signs it's willing to cooperate, like with the recent extradition of several cartel leaders to the U.S.
Anytime we can get an extradition, particularly from Mexico, it is a victory. And again, that's another signal that they send to us that they want to cooperate with us.
So while law enforcement agencies in Laredo, both on the federal and local level, continue to fight the war on drugs, more needs to be done.
What we need to try to do is we need to try to change the image of drug use in our culture And frankly, that's what it's going to take if we're ever going to get a handle on this problem. Well, there's no way that we will ever arrest our way out of this problem.